I am Michael Andrew Sullivan. Strangers and colleagues call me Mr. Sullivan. To most friends, I'm Mike. My parents and siblings used to call me Mikey when I was young, though I try to forget that. To my wonderful daughter, I'm Dad or Daddy, the title I wear most proudly. And my wife of 17 years, Rebecca? Well, that depends on the era. Once upon a time, I was Honey or Mikey Bear to her. Sometimes even Stud Muffin, if you can believe it. But these days, there hasn't been a term of endearment from her lips in a long time. We'll get to why soon enough. I'm nothing special on the surface. An average white guy pushing 40, about 6 feet tall, carrying a few extra pounds earned from one too many Texas BBQs and office donuts. I'm not some self-made millionaire or a genius hacker or a former Navy SEAL. I don't have a bat cave or super spy gadgets. I'm just a mid-career attorney, assistant district attorney for our large Texas county, working a steady job that I used to believe mattered more than the money it brought. My life's not the stuff of Hollywood action movies, but it was the stuff of a solid family story. Loving wife, bright daughter, decent home, and a respectable career serving justice. At least that's what I thought I had. After 3 grueling years of law school, I knew I wanted to be a trial lawyer. Corporate deals and tax codes bored me to tears. I craved the courtroom. So I turned down some higher-paying offers at corporate firms, where I'd push paper 80 hours a week, and instead joined the district attorney's office as a lowly misdemeanor prosecutor. The trade-off was clear. Less pay, less prestige, but lots of time in court honing my craft. I was willing to make that bargain. Starting out, I worked in cramped offices with creaky furniture and buzzing fluorescent lights, but I got to stand in front of juries and make my case. If you had the talent and tenacity, you moved up to the felony trials soon enough. And I did. Now, years later, I head one of the divisions in the DA's office. It's not glamorous, but it's meaningful work. At least I like to think so. I met Rebecca, Becky to me in those days, in the law library at the University of Texas when I was a 3L, third year, and she was a bright-eyed 2L. I was packing up my books to rush to a seminar when I spotted this auburn-haired girl desperately searching for an open study carrel. The library was packed. She looked frustrated and a little panicked, juggling a stack of casebooks. I was dog-tired from an all-nighter, but something in me, call it chivalry, call it instant attraction, made me wave her over and offer my study nook since I had to leave anyway. Becky flashed a grateful smile that just about knocked the wind out of me. I joked, "It's all yours, but maybe you can do my corporation's reading for me as rent." She laughed, this easy musical laugh, and that was it. That exchange turned into coffee, which turned into a lunch date later that week. Lunch led to dinner. By the time I graduated, I was head over heels. I managed to snag a 1-year judicial clerkship in Austin, conveniently keeping me nearby until she finished her final year of law school. We moved in together into a tiny apartment not far from campus. Money was tight, but we were young, in love, and optimistic. After Becky passed the bar, we got married in a modest ceremony with friends and family on a warm spring afternoon. I still remember how she looked walking down the aisle, like the only woman in the world. We were just 23 years old and ready to conquer life together. Not long after, we had our daughter, Haley. Haley wasn't exactly planned, but sometimes life surprises you in the best ways. I'll never forget holding that tiny, swaddled baby in the hospital, marveling at how I helped create something so perfect. From the moment Haley arrived, I was smitten. She became Daddy's girl instantly, my little shadow. I swear she had my heart in her tiny fist from her first breath. In the early years of our marriage, things were hectic but happy. My job at the DA's office rarely demanded late nights, which was by design. I wanted to be there for my family. Becky, on the other hand, started her career doing commercial litigation at a mid-sized law firm. The pay was decent and hours somewhat flexible. We made a conscious decision that I'd be the one with the stable hours while she could chase the more demanding and rewarding private sector career. It worked for us. I cooked dinners, read Haley her bedtime stories, and handled daycare pickups, while Becky took depositions and wooed corporate clients. We were a team, juggling roles to make sure Haley grew up loved and cared for. I won't lie. There were stressful days, like when a trial brief was due the same morning Haley woke up with a fever, but we managed. At least back then we did. For years, I believed we had the marriage balance figured out. We supported each other's ambitions. When I got a big conviction on a case, Becky took me out for beers and a Whataburger to celebrate. When Becky made junior partner at her firm, I surprised her with a weekend getaway to the hill country, with Haley happily staying with her grandparents. We were in sync, or so I allowed myself to think. About 7 years into our marriage, when Haley was in first grade, Becky landed a job at Bickman and Burnham, one of the most prestigious law firms in Texas. Triple B, they called it. B for short. And it was a big law powerhouse with offices in multiple states. This was the kind of opportunity young lawyers would kill for. High-profile cases, corporate jet travel, and an inside track to the legal elite. The partners at B were like legal royalty in Texas. The founding partner, Carter Bickman, and his twin sister, Camille, often known as the Big B around town for her outsized personality and ego, along with Edward Burnham, ran the place with an aura of invincibility. Their motto might as well have been, "Our shit don't stink." Seriously, the arrogance in that firm was off the charts. Both the attorneys and even the support staff carried themselves like demigods. If you weren't in the firm, you were beneath it. But they made obscene amounts of money and wielded serious influence, so what did they care? Becky was thrilled and nervous to join B. It was a huge jump for her career. We had a long talk before she accepted the offer. We both understood what it meant. Longer hours, more travel, and a hell of a lot more pressure. The carrot dangled in front of her was the possibility of making equity partner in a handful of years if she impressed the right people. And equity partners at B? Even the newbies cleared $500,000 a year easy, with the senior partners raking in several million. The prestige alone was intoxicating. And connections? B's partners had the governor on speed dial and CEOs at their beck and call. They sat on committees, got quoted in the Wall Street Journal, and patted judges on the back at charity galas. This was the big leagues. I told her, "If this is what you want, we'll make it work. I'll hold down the fort at home. You go be the rock star attorney." And I meant it. I was proud of her. Maybe part of me also thought, one of us should be making big money because Lord knows an ADA's salary wasn't making us rich. So Becky leaped at the opportunity, and I cheered her on. She hit the ground running at B, and for the first few years it seemed like we weathered the transition all right. Sure, she worked like the devil owed her a favor, but we still found time for family on weekends and the occasional date night when we could pawn Haley off on my sister or her parents. Becky's hard work started paying dividends. She brought in a couple of new clients, thanks to her charm and some savvy networking, and one emotion that saved a big corporate client millions. The higher-ups noticed. They started grooming her, I think, as a rising star. But with each passing year at B, the culture of that firm seeped into Becky's veins. I began to notice little changes in how she talked, how she carried herself. She grew a bit more contemptuous of my work and my schedule. Early on, if I mentioned a case I was excited about, she'd listen, even if it was a penny ante-burglary. But a few years into B, when I'd mention a trial victory, she'd sometimes respond with a polite, "That's nice, dear," then switch to talking about the multi-million-dollar deal her team closed, as if my work was cute but insignificant. I brushed it off at first, maybe she was just tired or preoccupied. Looking back, I can pinpoint when the unraveling truly began. Becky had been at B for about 4 years. Haley was 11, in 5th grade, and growing like a weed, turning into a whip-smart young lady. By then, B had fully indoctrinated my wife. If the firm had an unofficial mantra, it was, "Give us your all and we'll give you the world." And Becky gave them her all. It started small. An extra hour at the office here, a weekend seminar there. But gradually, B demanded more and more of her time and soul. Becky began working well into the evenings more often than not. Dinners that used to be the three of us became Haley and me at the kitchen island, eating leftovers or takeout while Becky toiled downtown in her glass tower. Night after night. Some nights she wouldn't make it home until after Haley was asleep. Our once-a-week family movie nights became once a month, then practically never. At odd first, I tried to be understanding. It's a phase, I told myself. Big case coming up or heavy travel season. It'll pass. But it didn't pass. I remember one evening, I made Becky's favorite chicken marsala, hoping for a nice family dinner since she promised she'd be home by 7. By 8:30, no sign of her. She finally walked in at 9, apologetic but exhausted, having missed the dinner entirely. Haley had given up and gone to bed. I was irked, but I reheated the plate for her and tried to shake it off. I said, "Honey, I get that you're busy, but Haley was really looking forward to dinner with you." I was too. Becky sighed. "Mike, you're exaggerating how often I'm late. And if you had my job, you'd understand. I can't always control when I get out of the office." There was that condescension. If you had my job. It stung a bit. Still, I let it go that night. But then the pattern solidified. Family time dwindled to near zero on weekdays. Then even weekends started getting swallowed. There were always urgent client meetings, networking events, or cases that needed her attention on a Saturday. I tried to talk to her about it many times. I told her straight up that Haley needed her mom around more, that I needed my partner back. Every time she'd either minimize the problem, "You're blowing it out of proportion, Mike," or justify it. "I have to put in the time now if I want that partnership. This is for all of us, don't you see?" Once she even snapped, "If you walked a mile in my Louboutins, you'd get it." Her tone dripped with irritation. I responded quietly, "Bex, I know you work hard. I do. But you're missing so much here at home." She cut me off. "Not this again. Mike, you work a stable 9 to 5 government job. You punch out and the day's over. That's not my reality. Please just, if you had my job, maybe you'd understand what real pressure is." "If you had my job, you'd understand," she'd said. That one really hurt. Dismissing what I do because it's not high-paying or flashy. The implication that my contributions were somehow lesser. It stayed with me. There was a particularly bruising stretch of months during which Becky missed every important family occasion you could miss. I'm talking my birthday. She basically forgot it. Ended up sending me a late-night text apology from DC where she was stuck at a conference. Haley's birthday, she managed a 5-minute FaceTime call from an airport. Our anniversary, I had made. Reservations at our favorite steakhouse, she never showed up. Too busy at a client dinner. A long-planned Sullivan family reunion at my parents' lake house. She bailed the day before to put out a fire for a VIP client. And perhaps worst of all, in Haley's eyes, Haley's Girl Scouts Silver Award ceremony. Haley had worked for 2 years toward that award. She was so proud and wanted her mom there to pin the badge on her vest. But Becky didn't show. She was in New York negotiating some merger that apparently couldn't wait. I sat in the school auditorium with an empty seat beside me as Haley walked the stage, looking simultaneously proud of herself and deflated that her mom wasn't in the audience. I did my damnedest to cheer loudly enough for 2 parents. Despite Becky's absence, Haley thrived in her own way. She's one of those kids who, even if the sun isn't shining on her, she'll make her own light. Uncommonly bright, with a knack for languages and literature, my Haley. Around that time, she got it into her head to learn French because she fell in love with Les Miserables, the musical, and wanted to read the original Victor Hugo novel in French. Within a year, she was reading entire chapters and correcting Google Translate. She's perceptive too, almost eerily so. She can pick up on the smallest tonal shifts in a conversation and glean the subtext. As you might imagine, that keen perception was both a blessing and a curse. It helped her excel in school debates and navigate teenage friendships, sure, but it also meant she knew something was very off between her mom and me, long before I wanted to admit it to myself. I think I truly realized how bad things had gotten one sunny Thursday morning. We were supposed to drive up to Lake LBJ to spend a long weekend at Becky's parents' lake house, an extended family gathering, something we all used to enjoy. We had packed the SUV the night before. Haley was practically bouncing with excitement to go tubing on the lake and spend time with her cousins. That morning, as I'm loading a cooler, Becky walks into the kitchen already dressed in one of her power suits and blurts out, "I can't go. Something's come up. I have to fly to Chicago with Camille Bickman and one of the senior partners, Jason Garrity. Last-minute deal emergency." I just stared at her, a duffel bag in my hand. "You're joking, right?" "We're literally walking out the door." She avoided my eyes, busying herself by checking her phone. "I'm sorry, Mike. I didn't expect this either, believe me. I'd rather be at the lake, but Big B, Camille, insisted I be there. It's critical. I'll be back Tuesday." Just like that, she was bailing. This Chicago trip emergency was on the heels of a last-minute flight to Raleigh the previous week for some merger meeting that would decide the fate of the universe, as she put it sarcastically when I questioned its urgency. And a month before that, it was 5 days in Hawaii under the guise of a legal seminar, which, come on, was clearly an excuse for the firm's brass to write off a mini vacation in Maui. No one does a real work seminar in Honolulu, and not Newark, New Jersey, unless it's play mixed with work. Each time she left on a little notice, leaving Haley and me in the lurch. I didn't take the Chicago news quietly. I was upset, not yelling, but definitely raising my concerns. You do realize you're leaving me to show up to your family event without you again, right? How many times are you going to put work ahead of us? Your parents are expecting you. Haley was excited to spend time together, and now you're just gone. My voice was tight, trying not to sound as hurt as I felt. I truly felt like a single parent in those moments, and it was getting damn old. Becky huffed as she hurried around packing a small suitcase. Mike, I told you I didn't choose this. I have to go. The firm needs me on this deal. You know I'm not a 9-to-5 clock puncher like you. Family stuff can happen later. This is important. She said important, like I was a child not grasping a fundamental concept. I tried to get her to at least apologize or acknowledge what she was doing to us. Becky, you can later yourself right out of a family if you're not careful, I warned, tempering my anger for the sake of not exploding. She paused, packing just long enough to snap, I'll make it up to Haley when I get back, okay? And tell everyone I'm sorry but duty calls. They'll understand. I wanted to keep arguing, to somehow jolt her into seeing what she was doing. But I'd seen this movie before. The discussion was over the second she said it was important. B had truly warped her priorities. By then I knew better than to push further. All I'd get was an eye roll or a lecture about how I didn't grasp her world. She disappeared into our walk-in closet to grab more clothes. I noticed absently that she was packing a lot more than a short business trip would seemingly require, but I didn't fully register the detail at that moment. In hindsight, that overstuffed roller bag was a glaring red flag I was too upset to catch. She'd packed her sexy lingerie, I later discovered, not that I was inspecting at the time. Instead of continuing a fight I wouldn't win, I walked out to the backyard for a breather, leaving her to finish packing. I needed space, physical space, between us, or I was liable to say something in anger that I couldn't take back. The screen door shut behind me with a thud, and I took a few deep breaths in the warm Texas air, staring unfocused at the pecan tree in our yard. My heart was pounding with frustration. I felt like a damn fool getting mad at a brick wall. That's what she'd become whenever work was challenged. A brick wall, indestructible and unresponsive. Hell, I'd probably have gotten more empathy out of that pecan tree. What I didn't realize was that Haley had been standing just outside our bedroom door listening. Whether she was drawn by the sound of us arguing or had been about to knock, I'm not sure. But she heard everything. We learned that when I came back inside. By then, Becky had her suitcase and was gliding through the kitchen, tempered and ready to depart. She gave me a perfunctory, I'll call when I land. I'm sorry, really. Love you, which felt more like checking a box than genuine affection. And then she was out the door. I watched through the front window as she tossed her bag in her car, a sleek Mercedes SUV she'd upgraded to in the throes of her success. She called it her gunship jokingly, as it was about the size of one, and sped off down the street. Haley wandered into the kitchen moments later, a juice box in hand, her shoulders slouched. She had this look on her face that mixed hurt and resignation. So Mom's gone. Again, she murmured. Where this time and for how long? Chicago. Back by Tuesday, supposedly. Work trip, pumpkin. You heard? It's important. I tried to keep my tone light, almost apologetic on her behalf, but my words dripped with bitterness that I couldn't hide. Haley gave a sarcastic half-smile that looked far too adult for a 13-year-old. Yes, that's what she said. My eyes snapped to her. There was an undertone in her voice. That's when she confessed. I overheard you guys arguing. Sorry for eavesdropping, Daddy, but I had to know. I sighed and pulled out a chair for her at the kitchen table, then sat down beside her. Part of me was embarrassed that my child had to hear that fight. Another part was relieved she knew, because hiding this tension was exhausting and frankly impossible. Well, I said gently, then you heard your mother promise she'd make it up to us when she gets back. I attempted to soften the situation, downplaying the exact wording Becky used, hoping to avoid pitting Haley against her mom any more than reality already had. Haley, sharp as ever, immediately shook her head. That's not what she said, Dad. She said she'd make it up to me. She didn't mention you. Leave it to my daughter to catch the subtle omission. In Becky's rush, she had aimed her appeasement only at Haley, not me. I hadn't even caught that in the moment, but Haley did. I was taken aback, unsure how to respond. Before I could muster anything, Haley pressed on, her face flushing with emotion. Daddy, something's really wrong with Mom. With you and Mom. More Mom than you, I think. She missed your birthday, my birthday, your anniversary dinner. She treats you like garbage, and honestly, it's affecting you. You're not happy. You used to be fun, and now you're, I don't know, kind of sad. Her voice trembled, a tear welling despite her obvious attempt to sound measured. Nothing gets past this kid. I put an arm around her shoulders and pulled her close. Your mother and I have some things to work through, I said softly. It's grown-up stuff, and I'm sorry it's affecting you. But I need you to trust me that no matter what, I love you to the moon and back, okay? That will never change. Haley leaned her head on me for a second and managed a little smile at our familiar catchphrase. But she wasn't done dissecting our family problems. You can't work it out if she's never here, Dad. She doesn't even listen for 2 minutes. And I know I'm just a kid, but guess what? What happens with you and Mom totally affects me. You always tell me honesty is important, so please be honest. Are you and Mom, are we going to be okay? Because it doesn't feel okay. Hearing my daughter ask that with fear and fury mixed in her voice just about broke me. I wanted to assure her that everything would be fine, to lie in that protective way parents are supposed to. But I've never lied to Haley, and I wasn't about to start now. I don't know, sweetheart, I admitted, my throat tight. Mom and we do have a lot to figure out, but one thing is for sure. You and we're going to be okay. You'll always have me, no matter what. She nodded slowly. It wasn't a full answer, but it was all I could give. After a moment, I forced a more upbeat tone. All right, kiddo. We better hit the road ourselves if we want to catch some daylight on the lake. Grandpa's world-famous smoked brisket is calling our name. I ruffled her hair lightly. Haley sniffled and mustered a brave smile. And I need my turn on the jet ski before the cousins hog it all weekend. That's my girl, I replied. We both tacitly agreed to tuck away the pain for now and salvage our weekend. We loaded into my pickup and headed out, leaving an empty driveway where moments before there should have been 3 of us. The weekend at the lake with Becky's family was awkward at first, to say the least. Imagine me showing up without my wife, having to explain to her parents and siblings that, once again, work took her away. They were polite about it, but I could feel the concern and disapproval radiating, especially from her mom. This wasn't the first time she'd failed to show for family gatherings, and folks were starting to suspect the pattern wasn't just overwork. Becky's mom pulled me aside the second evening, worry lines creasing her forehead. Is everything all right between you two? She asked softly. We're getting worried about Rebecca. She's changed. What was I supposed to say? I did my usual dance. I assured her Becky was just under a lot of pressure trying to make partner, that it would get better after that, though I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. She patted my hand, unconvinced. Just take care of our girl, she said. I nodded, guilt gnawing at me. How could I take care of someone who wouldn't let me in anymore? Despite the elephant in the room, Haley had a great time that weekend with her cousins. Tubing, roasting marshmallows, gorging on Grandpa's brisket as planned. I tried to enjoy it too. I did enjoy her. We swam together. I taught her how to drive the small fishing boat, to her absolute delight. And at night, she and her cousins caught fireflies by the dozen. In those moments, I felt a bittersweet happiness, grateful for my daughter and the family I married into, but aching for the absence of my wife and the erosion of what should have been. Becky did call once over the weekend, late Sunday night. She kept it short, mostly asking to speak to Haley, who by then had fallen asleep, exhausted from a day in the sun. I said I'd pass along the message that Mom called. Before hanging up, I ventured, "How's Chicago?" "Productive," she replied, voice clipped. "We'll wrap up tomorrow and I'll be on a flight home Tuesday as planned." "Good," I said. There was so much more I wanted to say, but the weight of everything unsaid pressed on my chest until I simply murmured, "Good night, Rebecca." We hardly ever used each other's full names, and it felt oddly formal. "Night," she answered softly after a pause. We drove back Monday, Haley and I, sunburnt and tired but content enough. Becky got home Tuesday afternoon as promised. That evening at dinner, it was obvious Haley was craving some attention from her mom. She peppered Becky with questions. How was Chicago? Did you get any free time? See anything cool? I watched as Becky, clearly drained, gave one or two-word answers. Fine, no, not really. Too busy, she said between bites, barely making eye contact. She didn't return Haley's enthusiasm. Haley's face fell. My daughter was trying, reaching out, and Becky was elsewhere. I jumped in asking a benign question about the trip, trying to draw Becky out a little. Did you at least get some deep dish pizza while in Chicago? I teased lightly. Becky looked at me as if I'd asked the stupidest question. No, Mike, we worked the whole time. It wasn't a sightseeing trip. She managed a tight smile after, perhaps realizing she sounded harsh, but the damage was done. Haley went quiet, pushing peas around her plate. After a few more strained minutes of me and Haley exchanging looks, my girl just excused herself. I've got homework, she mumbled, and left the table, defeat in her posture. I gathered the plates in silence while Becky scrolled through her phone absently. Inside, I was simmering. She can't even be bothered to show interest in our daughter's attempts at conversation. It took all my restraint not to blow up then and there. Instead, once the kitchen was tidied, I found her in our bedroom unpacking her suitcase, and I gently suggested, maybe go say goodnight to Haley. She was really happy you're home, and I will, she interjected, not looking at me. In a minute. I need to respond to a couple of emails first. I left before I said something snippy. From down the hall, I heard Becky eventually knock on Haley's door, go in for a couple of minutes, then retreat to our room. When I passed by Haley's door later, she was already asleep, or at least pretending. Lying in bed that night next to a wife who felt like a stranger, I stared at the ceiling and finally allowed the thought that had been creeping at the edges of my mind for months. Our marriage was in serious trouble. We weren't just going through a rough patch, we were completely out of sync, living separate lives under one roof. She was a comet blazing through her career's atmosphere, and Haley and I were like forgotten satellites orbiting far beneath her glow. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months. Summer came and went, and with each passing month I felt Rebecca slipping further away from Haley and me. When she was physically present, she was emotionally checked out, always one foot in the next conference call or client meeting. We continued our uneasy waltz of polite interactions and unspoken resentments. On the surface, to any outsider, maybe we still looked like a successful power couple. ADA husband, big firm wife, lovely home in an upscale suburb, well-behaved smart kid. But behind closed doors, the warmth was all but gone. We were roommates at best, frosty strangers at worst. I really did, to bridge the gap. I attempted date nights. She canceled or showed up late every time. I suggested we see a marriage counselor just to improve communication. She brushed it off. Mike, things are fine. You worry too much. She even laughed the suggestion off as unnecessary, which infuriated me because things were clearly not fine. One night, in a last-ditch effort, I waited up for her with a bottle of her favorite Cabernet, open on the kitchen island. It was nearly 11 p.m. when she walked in looking bone-tired. Instead of scolding her lateness, I gently offered a glass and said, "Sit with me a minute." To my surprise, she did. We sipped wine in near silence. I finally spoke, "I miss you, Becky. We miss you." My voice wavered a bit despite my resolve to stay steady. She closed her eyes, and for a moment I saw a flash of the woman I fell in love with. Vulnerable, remorseful. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know I've been absent. I'm under so much pressure to perform. They've basically promised me the next partnership slot if I keep this up. Just a little longer, Mike. After I make partner, it'll calm down. I can slow down a bit, delegate more. I promise." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. I squeezed her hand back. "If you're sure. But Becky, you have to make time for us too. Not someday, now. Haley's growing up fast. She needs her mom around. And I need my wife." The last part came out more plaintive than I intended. She nodded, eyes glistening. "You're right. I'll do better. I will." For a week or two after that conversation, there was a slight improvement. She made an effort to have dinner at home a couple nights, even managed to come to one of Haley's field hockey games on a Saturday, though she did spend a good chunk of it emailing on her phone. It was something, though. I clung to hope like a man grasping at the last life preserver on a sinking ship. I told myself, we can turn this around. The partnership announcement was a month or two away. Maybe things really would ease up after that. And then the bottom fell out. It started with a tiny seed of suspicion that I kept trying to uproot and dismiss, a whispered half-thought in my mind. Could she be? No, I would tell myself, not Becky. Not the woman who used to tear up at sappy love songs and leave me post-it notes that said, I love you. Have a great day. On the bathroom mirror. She wouldn't cheat. She was just consumed by work, that's all. But as her emotional distance grew, little signs started to ping my radar. A few times I smelled an unfamiliar cologne on her suit jacket. She claimed it was just a colleague's perfume rubbing off in close quarters at meetings. She started wearing a new perfume herself, one I hadn't bought her, and that she hadn't worn around me. Perhaps she applied it at work. She changed her phone's passcode, which she'd never bothered to do before. When I casually asked why, she said B had tighter security policies now. One night I noticed her taking her phone with her into the bathroom during a shower, something she never did in the past. It was little things like that. Each was easy to explain away on its own, and I did because the alternative, that my wife was having an affair, was too painful to consider. But then came the night. Roughly a year after that disastrous lake trip weekend, on a Friday evening, Becky had claimed she was having a girls' night with her best friend Cassandra, or Cassie. Cassie has been Becky's ride or die since elementary school. They were sorority sisters even. I know Cassie well, and I had no reason to doubt the plan. Cassie's a straight shooter and had been a bridesmaid at our wedding. In fact, I was a little relieved that Becky was doing something social outside of work. She deserved a break, and maybe Cassie could talk some sense into her about life balance. So that night, Haley went to a friend's for a sleepover, and I had the house to myself. I ordered a pizza, cracked open a beer, and settled in to watch Unfaithful on HBO. Yeah, the 2002 Richard Gere Diane Lane movie about a cheating wife. Call it morbid curiosity or free therapy. Maybe I was subconsciously trying to make sense of my own life through a cautionary tale. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was about halfway through the film, at the part where Gere's character is getting suspicious of his wife's secret dalliances, when I heard a car door and then the sound of keys jingling at our front door. I glanced at the time, 10:30 p.m. Odd. Girls' night should not be ending this early, I thought. The front door opened and in walked Becky. She was dressed to the nines in a little black dress and heels, looking gorgeous and more done up than I'd expected for a casual evening with Cassie. Her makeup was a bit smudged, and she had a wary, almost guilty look when she saw me on the couch. Hey, you're home early, I said, trying for casual but unable to keep the curiosity and mild suspicion out of my voice. She froze like a deer in headlights for a split second, then forced a light tone. Yeah, it was kind of a bust. Cassie wasn't feeling well, bad sushi or something, so we called it an early night. She avoided eye contact by busying herself shrugging off her jacket. Something felt off. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was too early for Cassie to be sick from bad sushi, eaten just an hour or two ago. And Becky looked more like she'd been out dancing than sitting by a sick friend. But I played along. Oh, sorry to hear that. You could have called. I'd have come got you. She waved her phone dismissively. It's fine, I took a lift home. Didn't want to bother you. She then noticed the movie playing on the TV. On screen, Richard Gere was digging through his wife's drawers looking for evidence of infidelity. The irony dial was at 11. Becky gave a strained chuckle. What are you watching? I kept my eyes on the screen. Unfaithful. You ever see it? Richard Gere suspects his wife is cheating on him. Hires a detective. Finds out she's riding the hobby horse with some French guy. It, doesn't end well. My voice was controlled, but I snuck a glance at her face as I spoke. Becky's eyes widened a fraction. She blinked rapidly and bit her lower lip. Oh, I haven't seen that one. I pressed the pause button and turned to look directly at her for the first time since she came home. It's a hell of a story, I said, my heart thudding. The husband just can't ignore the signs, you know? So he gets proof. And when he's absolutely sure, he confronts her lover and, well, I gave a mirthless half-smile. Caca pasa. Her brow furrowed. Caca what? I stared at her evenly. Shit happens. He bashes the guy's head in with a snow globe in a fit of rage. Becky's face drained of color. Jesus, Mike, he kills someone over an affair? Isn't he a guy who puts people in prison for murder? She forced a laugh that didn't hide her discomfort. I shrugged, still holding her gaze. It's just a movie, don't worry. I'm not about to take notes or anything. I added quietly, and no, you don't get to kill someone over an affair. But sometimes actions have consequences. Big ones. As the kids say these days, FAFO. She tilted her head, confused and anxious. What does that mean? I deepened my voice in a mock gravitas, channeling James Earl Jones. Fuck around. Find out. It felt like the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Becky stood stock still, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. She swallowed hard. I could almost see her mind racing. Was I implying what she thought? Did I know something? After an agonizing few seconds, she managed to speak. I'm sorry about the other night before I left for Chicago. I shouldn't have been so snippy, she stammered, entirely bypassing my loaded statement. Really, I'm sorry. She stepped toward me with a tentative smile. Why don't you come to bed? I miss you. It was such a sudden 180, I almost laughed. She was rattled, trying to diffuse the tension by seducing me, perhaps. This hadn't happened in ages, her initiating intimacy. I realized she must have interpreted my fuck around find out as I know you're cheating. And now she was scrambling to pull me back in, to reassure me, or herself, that I was still securely under her spell, oblivious or at least willing to forgive and forget if she played the loving wife. Well, I wasn't going to play the clueless cuckold grateful for table scraps. Not this time. She touched my arm gently. Come on, Mikey, she purred, a nickname she hadn't used in a long while. Let's go to bed. I owe you a proper apology. She tried for sultry, stepping closer, bringing her face near mine. I could smell her perfume mixed with the faint tang of sweat, like she'd been out dancing or something more vigorous. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Thanks, but I'll pass, I said evenly. She blinked, clearly not expecting a rejection. In the past, if she ever did show a hint of sexual interest, I'd jump through a hoop of fire for it. Now I was turning her down flat. She looked both surprised and a little insulted. Mike, I'm trying to... I cut her off with a cold little smile. For what? To make up for it with a pathetic shag? My voice was calm, almost detached. No thank you, Becky. I'm not that desperate. Hurt flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by anger. Excuse me? I said I was sorry for being short with you, and I'm genuinely trying to reconnect here. You don't have to be a jerk. I stood up from the couch, unable to fully contain the bitterness that had built up. Reconnect? I echoed. You haven't wanted to connect in months. The one time I tried to initiate, before your trip, you brushed me off like a pesky insect. And now suddenly you're feeling frisky because what? I got under your skin with a movie scenario? I shook my head. It doesn't work like that, Rebecca. I don't want you to make it up to me because you feel guilty or whatever. I want to be wanted. To be more than some inconvenience or, how did you put it, clock puncher roommate in your life. My voice rose despite myself, frustration pouring out. She recoiled slightly. That's not fair, she snapped. I've said I'm sorry. And yes, I want you. Do you think I don't notice we haven't been together lately? It's been stressful, but I'm trying here. Her tone grew defensive. Trying? That's what this is? I gave a hollow laugh. Tell me, if I hadn't made that crack just now, would you have been in the mood tonight? Or did something I said scare you into thinking maybe I won't be here waiting forever? So it's damage control time? She flushed. Wow, you really have a low opinion of me, don't you? I didn't answer directly. I just stared at her, feeling tired and angry and hurt all at once. You said you'll make things up to Haley. Frankly, I think that's where your energy should go. Our daughter. She needs her mother. I'm a grown man. I'll survive without affection, but she shouldn't have to. Becky's eyes glistened as if I'd slapped her. She opened her mouth, then shut it, at a rare loss for words. Finally, she spoke in a measured, cold tone. Fine, if that's how you feel. She drew herself up. You can sleep in your den tonight since you obviously don't want to be in the same bed as me, and maybe for the foreseeable future, Michael. She spat my name out like a curse. I was trying to extend an olive branch and you burned it. I stared at her, a mix of incredulity and fury bubbling inside. How quickly she flipped from seduction to punishment. I've been in the den for weeks. What's a few more, right? I said dryly. Maybe I snore less for you down the hall. She glared. You know what? Yes. Stay in your damn den until you can get over this little snit. There are going to be some changes around here starting now. I won't be disrespected in my own home, Mike. She practically barked it loud enough I worried she'd wake Haley. I gave a mock salute. Yes, ma'am, whatever you say. My voice was flat. Inside, something had broken. Any hope that remained in me that we could fix this, that she even wanted to fix this, was extinguished. Her eyes flashed, expecting more fight from me perhaps, but I had none left to give. I turned and walked away as she fumed. I headed straight to the small spare room that had become my unofficial bedroom these past months. My den of self-imposed exile on nights when I was sick of the cold silence of our master bedroom. I closed the door, heart pounding. My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with rage and a painful clarity. She had turned me into the bad guy in her mind just now, entirely sidestepping her own culpability. It was as if she was laying the groundwork. Mike's the disrespectful jerk, Mike's unreasonable. Perhaps to assuage her guilt, perhaps to justify whatever she was doing behind my back. Maybe both. I sat on the pull-out couch in that den, running my hands over my face. If I had any doubt before, it had evaporated. I needed to know the truth, the full truth. If she was cheating, and my gut was screaming that she was, I had to have proof, concrete evidence, not just hunches or circumstantial oddities. Otherwise, years from now, she'd tell everyone I was a paranoid maniac who blew up our marriage for no reason. Or worse, I'd second-guess myself if she managed to spin lies. I needed the truth, clear as day, to move forward with my eyes open. As I sat there, a swirl of disparate thoughts coalesced into a plan. A terrible, necessary plan. First things first, I decided to hire a private investigator. I knew of one through a colleague, Perry Desmond, a retired detective who now ran a small PI firm. I'd heard good things. A friend in the DA's office used him during her divorce to catch her ex hiding assets and another woman. If anyone could get proof, it'd be Desmond. Before I could lose my nerve, I quietly stepped out of the den and retrieved my laptop from the living room. Through our bedroom door, I could hear drawers opening and shutting hard, Becky likely changing and muttering to herself. I tiptoed back to the den and closed the door. It was near midnight, but I didn't care. I sent an email to Desmond's firm's generic address, marking it urgent, saying I needed to meet ASAP regarding a potential infidelity case. Then I sat and stared at the wall, adrenaline coursing, anger and hurt thudding in my chest. Moments later, a text pinged on my phone. Speak of the devil, it was Mystery Caller, though at that time I didn't know who it was. The text came from an unfamiliar number. I have information that you need to know. About Rebecca. It's important. Please don't ignore this. My pulse jumped. Was this some prank or a scam? I texted back warily, "Who is this?" 3 long dots indicated typing, then, "You don't know me, but I know about your wife and what she's doing. She's been betraying you. I can prove it." I nearly dropped the phone. My hands began to tremble. Could this be real? For a fleeting second, I thought maybe Rebecca was testing me, having someone bait me to see if I mistrusted her. But that was far-fetched and paranoid. More likely, someone was trying to do the right thing, like a whistleblower, or someone with their own axe to grind. Either way, I wanted whatever they had. I texted back, "Prove it." Immediately, my phone rang. Same number. I hesitated, then answered. A female voice, hushed but firm, spoke. "I can't stay on long, but what I said is true. Your wife and a partner at her firm, Jason Garrity, are having an affair. Everyone at B knows, even the senior partners. They cover for them." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, no matter that I was already suspecting it. Hearing it spoken plainly made it real. I managed to find my voice. "Who are you? Why are you telling me this?" She ignored the first question. "Because I couldn't stand by and watch it happen to someone else. Look, my own marriage fell apart last year because my ex couldn't keep it in his pants. He was a lawyer too, ran off with his paralegal after cheating under my nose. I have 2 little kids and he left us like we were nothing. I know how much it hurts. I wish someone had warned me. So, I'm warning you." Her words poured out in a whisper tinged with anger and empathy. I sat there stunned. Thank you," I stammered, still reeling. Part of me still needed more. "But you said you can prove it?" "Check your email," she said. "I just sent you something from a temporary account. Pictures of hotel reservations, copies of internal emails I borrowed." dates and details of their trips that were more play than work. They're clever, use firm resources to cover it. But some of us figured it out. The partners know and allow it, even facilitate it. They think rules don't apply to them. My mind spun, trying to catch up. Partners facilitating it? It was a whole conspiracy of adultery? Why would they do that? I asked incredulously, a dry chuckle from her. Because Jason Garrity brings in huge clients, and Rebecca is their rising star. A little affair? They don't give a damn as long as the money flows. The firm even leases a pair of apartments in the city ostensibly for late-working attorneys to crash in. Guess who uses them the most? Not for sleeping either. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. That explained so much. Becky wouldn't come home smelling like another man or needing to shower off because she wasn't doing the deed in some cheap motel or car. She had a sanitized, firm-provided love nest complete with a shower and fresh change of clothes. My stomach turned. Mystery caller continued. I overhear things, Mr. Sullivan. They don't even hide it when they think no one's around. I heard Jason and your wife just today talking about how you've been weird since you turned down sex. She's worried you're suspicious, so they agreed to cool the out-of-town trips for now, but they'll keep meeting at the apartments. I realized I was gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles were white. I forced myself to speak evenly. You work at the firm, I take it? A pause. Yes, and that's all I'm saying about me. I'm not doing this to be known. I just want to help you because I hate seeing scumbags get away with it. My ex got away with it for too long. I won't let these people ruin another family if I can help it. Tears unexpectedly pricked my eyes, not of sadness but of gratitude mixed with humiliation, that a stranger had to tell me that it was really happening. I appreciate this, truly. God, I don't even know what to say. Don't say anything, just use the info. And one more thing, you didn't hear it from me. They can't know I leaked this. I'm keeping my own head above water here. Her voice turned anxious at that. Of course, I assured quickly. I won't reveal you. I don't even know your name. Good. Check your email. I'll be in touch if I find out anything else useful. Good luck. She hung up. I set the phone down, hands trembling. Then I lunged for my laptop. My personal Gmail, a new one I'd made after our fight just for caution, had a new message from a throwaway address. Attached were several documents and images. Heart pounding, I opened them. There were scans of hotel receipts from Raleigh, from Chicago, from Honolulu, locations matching those business trips Becky had taken. I saw her name and Garrity's name listed as guests on adjoining, or same rooms on specific dates that lined up perfectly with when she'd been away for work. Reservations made by Bickman and Burnham's travel office, marked as business, expenses. Another document was a series of inter-office emails. Senior partner Camille emailing others about scheduling Jason and Rebecca to attend a conference together. One that I suspect was just a cover for sending them off on a jaunt. The tone was almost joking. Make sure room 1101 is stocked with champagne for our lovebirds, LOL. One email from some office manager to another said. My stomach churned with nausea and fury. They all knew. They enabled it. Even found amusement in it. One PDF was a list of late-night apartment usage, Q1, for the firm's downtown corporate apartments. Sure enough, Rebecca Sullivan and Jason Garrity were frequent sign-outs, often overlapping or back-to-back entries. Right there in black and white, if there had been any lingering doubt, it was gone. She was unfaithful, over a year at least, of lies and betrayal. I don't remember falling asleep that night. I think I just sat there on the den sofa, documents spread before me on the screen, and eventually, fatigue knocked me out in the early hours. I awoke to my phone alarm and the dull realization that everything had changed. When I stepped out into the kitchen that morning, Becky had already left for work without a word. I got Haley off to school, though I could barely meet her eyes at the bus stop, afraid she'd see the rage and heartbreak swirling in mine. At the office, I must have looked like a zombie because my colleague Danny asked if I was sick. I mumbled something about not sleeping well. In truth, I was barely holding it together. I had all the information, now I needed a plan. Perry Desmond got back to me swiftly. By that afternoon, I was sitting across from him in his small office above a strip mall, a $5,000 retainer lighter in my bank account. I felt a little guilty using the mad money savings Becky and I had set aside, ostensibly for hobbies or personal splurges, to spy on her, but Then again, it was truly her actions funding the investigation. I told Desmond enough to get him going. I suspected an affair with her coworker, had some circumstantial evidence. I didn't yet mention the mystery caller's trove. I wanted to see what he'd find independently to have multiple sources. Desmond leaned back and assured me he'd get to the bottom of it. "I'll get you the truth, Mr. Sullivan. One way or another," he said. And I believed him. The next week was hellish. Pretending everything was normal around Becky when all I wanted was to scream at her or break down and cry or both. It was the performance of a lifetime, and it drained me. I was distant, and so was she. In that sense, nothing changed outwardly. But inside, I was like a live wire. I moved to the den full-time, claiming a sore back and not wanting to disturb her with tossing and turning. She seemed fine with that, which told me plenty. I also went to the doctor to get tested for STDs, something I never thought I'd have to do in my faithful marriage. Negative across the board, thankfully, but I'd have to do follow-ups in a few months for certain viruses. The thought made me simultaneously furious and heartsick. Here I was, testing for diseases because my wife couldn't keep her vows. Mystery caller, I had dubbed her MC in my mind, reached out a couple more times. Quick phone calls in which she filled in more pieces of the puzzle. She told me about overhearing Jason and Becky agree to hold off on obvious trips for a while, confirming what she'd texted earlier. She described how the apartments worked and how the firm turned a blind eye. I asked her once why she wouldn't tell me who she was so I could maybe help her if there was blowback. She insisted anonymity was her safety. I respected that. Frankly, given the powerful people involved, I understood her caution. Each day I went to work, pretended to function, then spent evenings focused on Haley or avoiding Rebecca. I think Haley sensed something heavy in me and between us, but perhaps she'd chalked it up to the ongoing tension she already knew existed. I tried to act as normal as possible for her sake, but I wasn't always successful. One night, we were watching a superhero movie in the living room, and there was a scene where the hero's wife kisses him goodbye before a dangerous mission. I felt tears burn my eyes unexpectedly. I had to feign a cough and step into the kitchen. Haley came up behind me and just hugged me without a word. I hugged her back, grateful and wrecked at the same time. She knew something was very wrong, but bless her, she didn't push me to explain. Not yet. I told myself I'd wait for Desmond's results before making any decisions or confronting Becky. I wanted incontrovertible evidence from a professional to add to MC's intel. But I won't pretend I wasn't tempted to confront earlier. Some nights I'd lie awake fantasizing about calling her out, imagining her stammering excuses, perhaps even some dramatic confession. Other nights I fantasized about punching Jason Garrity in his perfect teeth or, darkly, seeing him behind bars for something, anything. That one surprised me. Turns out the prosecutor in me wanted justice somehow for this crime of the heart. During that limbo, I confided in exactly one person, my boss and friend, Rob McAllister. I intentionally waited until I was certain what I was going to do, divorce, so that it wasn't a hypothetical. Rob's a good old boy with a heart of gold, and he'd been through a rough divorce himself years back. I stepped into his office one afternoon, closed the door, and just said it. "Rob, I might need some personal time in the near future. I'm likely going to be divorcing Rebecca." He looked up sharply. "Damn it, Mike. I don't like that look on your face. What happened?" I gave him the Cliff's notes. I suspected her of an affair, had evidence in the works, and that it might get messy because the other man was a high-profile lawyer at B. I assured him I'd try to keep it from reflecting on the office, but I wanted to give him a heads up that in coming weeks I might be distracted or need leave. Hell, I even offered to resign preemptively if he thought it best. Last thing I wanted was the DA's office getting negative press because of my personal war. Rob listened, leaning back in his chair with arms crossed, frowning deeply. When I finished, he shook his head. "First off, I'm damn sorry, Tomcat." He uses Top Gun-inspired nicknames for the office attorneys. Mine's Tomcat. "Second, you stay put. I'm not losing a solid ADA because some prancing peacock from B couldn't keep his pecker zipped." He practically growled that. "So long as you don't do anything boneheaded like flatten his tires on camera or such, I don't give a rat's ass. Frankly, those B folks could use a black eye. They've lorded it over us public servants for too long. They ain't bulletproof, as you're about to prove." He gave me a firm nod. "So do what you gotta do. Just keep me in the loop enough that I'm not blindsided, okay? And holler if you need to vent or grab a whiskey at O'Malley's. Been where you are, you know that. Doors open, son." I left his office feeling lighter. Support like that is invaluable. It also steeled my resolve. I had someone in my corner no matter what ugliness ensued. A couple weeks after I hired him, Desmond came through in spades. He texted me simply, "Got what you need." We met at a discreet location, a quiet corner booth in a steakhouse during the mid-afternoon lull. He slid me a manila envelope like it was a spy exchange. Inside was a veritable treasure trove of evidence. Photographs of Rebecca and Jason leaving the downtown firm apartments at odd hours. One series showed them emerging around 3 p.m. on a weekday, hair mussed, looking around furtively. Another had them entering a suite on a Friday evening, then not coming out for several hours. There were videos on a thumb drive of them meeting at a hotel bar and getting into an elevator together. How Desmond got those, I didn't want to know. Some looked like security cam footage that maybe a well-greased palm acquired. He even managed to obtain copies of text messages between Rebecca and Jason. That blew my mind. Perhaps he cloned a device or got into her phone somehow during surveillance. The messages were graphic and explicit. Becky telling Jason how she couldn't stop thinking about his hands on her. Jason saying things like, "Last night was incredible, can't wait till our next meeting." It made me physically ill to read, but I read every damn word, burning it into my brain as armor against any softening I might be tempted to feel for her later. Desmond, a stony-faced professional throughout, did offer a sympathetic, "This part's rough, Mike, take your time." I must have looked pale, but I just shook my head, steel in my voice. "Thank you, this is exactly what I needed." He leaned forward. I also dug up some interesting tidbits. Looks like they've been at it for close to a year. Started with some late nights at the office, then progressed. And get this, Jason's married too. His wife's name is Elaine, they have 2 kids. I suspect she doesn't know, but I could be wrong. I got some info on her if you ever need it. I nodded slowly, absorbing that. So 2 families wrecked in one go. Actually, knowing Jason had a wife and kids made me even angrier. He wasn't just some single Lothario. I mean, it would still be awful, but he was betraying his own family and mine. The arrogance. I said quietly, already thinking ahead. Lastly, Desmond handed me a separate file. "This is interesting and might be leverage. Look at these expense reports." He showed me copies of firm expense sheets. I noticed line items where Jason or others billed the firm, or even government clients, for consulting or travel that coincided with personal time with my wife. "He's been expensing his hookups," Desmond said with a hint of disgust. "If he charged any of that to a federal client or across state lines, he's committed some light fraud. Could be something there if you want to get creative." A slow grin spread on my face for the first time in weeks. That was a potential ace up the sleeve. "Thank you, Perry. This is above and beyond." I meant it. He shook my hand. "Gotta admit, cases like this, I take a little pleasure in nailing the bastards. I hate cheaters." His jaw tightened briefly, perhaps hinting at a personal story. "If you need anything else, let me know. Otherwise, good luck to you." Armed with Desmond's evidence and MC's intel, I finally felt solid ground under my feet. Any remnants of denial or hope I had for reconciliation were gone. In its place, a cold resolve took over. I was going to burn it all down. After leaving the steakhouse, I sat in my car, envelope on the passenger seat, and allowed myself a few long breaths. Emotion welled up, anger, grief for the marriage I thought I had, heartbreak for Haley. But beneath it, a grim determination. They had treated me like a fool, as expendable. They were still at it, plotting around my schedule. Well, let them plot. They had no idea who they were dealing with now. I'm an attorney. I know how to fight fair. But I was also a wounded husband and father who had been deceived for far too long. And I decided then and there, I was going to fight unfair if I had to. Burn it down, salt the earth. That firm, that man, and sadly my marriage, none would come out unscathed. I spent the next day formulating a plan like it was one of my court cases. Strategizing steps, anticipating countermoves. That Saturday, I called up an old law school buddy, Michael Chen, who now did civil litigation, especially the wild kind. Mike was a creative thinker, loved challenging cases for the sport of it. We met for BBQ and I laid out a hypothetical. What could a betrayed spouse do legally against not only the paramour, but those who enabled an affair? Texas doesn't recognize alienation of affection suits, where you sue the homewrecker, unfortunately. Mike confirmed that. Nope, only a few states let you sue the side piece, not here. I pressed, what about something like fraud? The firm and this guy misled me, saying all those late nights and trips were for work, making me take on extra burdens at home, etc., with the promise that I'd share in the benefits when she made partner. I did my part, they lied, and now I don't get the reward. It sounded crazy, but I was half crazy at this point. Mike initially laughed. You can't sue for lost sex, bro. I wasn't laughing. Not sex. Loss of consortium, loss of her companionship and contributions. Her services as a spouse, in old legal terms. They induced me to go along with it all under false pretenses. He raised an eyebrow, realizing I was serious. Do you want to sue a law firm for basically harboring an affair? That's novel. But I could see the gears turning. The elements of fraud are a knowing misrepresentation, intent to deceive, reliance by the victim, and damages. So, argument. The firm knowingly lied that your wife's overtime and trips were legit, intended to deceive you, to keep you off their backs maybe. You relied by supporting her career while picking up slack at home, and you were damaged, financially, emotionally, by the affair's consequences. Huh? I leaned in. And consider this. I have evidence the firm's partners actively facilitated and covered it up. That's conspiracy. Maybe even a RICO case if I get imaginative. RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is usually for organized crime, but it can be stretched to any ongoing coordinated fraud. Mike's eyes gleamed at the audacity of it. That's ballsy. They'll get it dismissed likely, but even the threat of it could shake them. They won't want the publicity or the discovery exposure. All their dirty laundry, actually shit, discovery could be fun. Emails, depositions of partners about what they knew. He grinned fiercely. You know what? Screw it, I'm in. If anything, it'll be one hell of a ride making them squirm. But this is contingency, man. I'll take a percentage of any payout, but costs? You funding this? It'll not be cheap. Expert witnesses, filing fees. I cut him off. I can cover costs. We had money saved for a vacation we'll never take now. About 20 grand I can liquidate for this fight, my war chest. It felt perversely satisfying to imagine spending what was meant for an anniversary trip on nuking her firm instead. We clinked iced tea glasses and agreed to start drafting a lawsuit that very week. I shared pertinent evidence from Desmond and MC, redacting MC's identifying bits. Mike was salivating. Man, this is some soap opera shit. But with these emails and internal memos, woo boy, they look complicit in deceiving you. Even if the case is a loser, they won't like this aired out. That night, I did something I dreaded but felt was right. I reached out to Elaine Garrity, Jason's wife. With the help of some public records and the tidbits Desmond gave me, I got her cell. I wrestled with whether to involve her, but in the end, I thought she deserved to know and to have a chance to protect herself and her kids, just like I was about to. I also figured an ally on that side couldn't hurt in the coming battle. I called her expecting hostility or disbelief. Initially, she was defensive. Who is this? When I explained I was Rebecca's husband, her tone became very cautious. I gently told her I had proof that her husband and mine were involved, and that I thought she should know for her own sake. She asked to see the proof. Smart woman. We met at a coffee shop near her suburb the next day. Elaine was a composed, elegant woman in her 40s, clearly trying to keep a brave face. I handed her a tablet and let her read through some of the milder evidence. Texts and a photo of Jason and Rebecca kissing by an elevator. Still, it broke her. She silently started to cry, then quickly excused herself to the restroom for a long time. When she returned, her face was hardened. Tears dried. She asked quietly, "What are you going to do?" I told her I was divorcing Rebecca and likely suing the firm and Jason in civil court. She absorbed that, and then, to my surprise, suggested sinking our strikes. Have them served with divorce papers and whatever else at the same time, perhaps at a setting where it hurts most, like, say, the firm's big annual holiday party that's coming up. She knew from Jason's calendar it was 3 weeks away, mid-December. I gave a low whistle. This woman was sharper than me. It hadn't even occurred to me to time it to a spectacle. But once she said it, I was all in. They'll both be there and all the partners, I mused. Public humiliation, maximum impact. She nodded, a fierce glint in her eye now. If it's war they want, war they'll get. I have my own lawyers already preparing my divorce and a restraining order to freeze assets. My father's a retired judge and he never liked Jason, so he's helping assemble a legal kill shot. She allowed herself a tight, grim smile. They never liked Jason at all, in fact. Dad insisted we sign a strong prenup. He and Mom will help me hammer Jason's balls to the wall. I'll be fine financially. I just want to scorch his earth in return for this betrayal. I liked her spirit. We agreed to coordinate serving of papers at the holiday gala. She would not attend. Why give them the satisfaction or risk a scene with her kids watching? But she'd ensure he went solo by faking an illness that night, then use the time to change the locks and pack his stuff. She even joked about throwing his things on the lawn. I suggested donating it all to Goodwill and keeping the receipt for tax purposes, which made her laugh for a moment. In that laugh, I heard both our pain. As we parted, I asked if she was okay, truly. She sighed. No, but I will be. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry it came to this for both of us. We shared an understanding look of mutual resolve. With Elaine on board, the trap was set. The next weeks were a blur of preparation. I got the divorce petition drafted, a standard no-fault filing, with an option to amend to adultery if needed for leverage in negotiations, though Texas is no fault generally. I arranged for an off-duty sheriff's deputy, a buddy, to serve papers discreetly. Mike worked on the lawsuit to file against the firm and partners for fraud and conspiracy. We lined up a process server company to infiltrate the event in waitstaff uniforms, a tactic Mike found amusingly dramatic but effective for simultaneous serving of multiple people. We wanted the managing partners to get served too, not just Rebecca and Jason. During those weeks, I continued to play the role of oblivious husband at home, which was infuriating and surreal. But I had one more performance to give. The weekend of the big firm Christmas gala arrived. That Saturday, Becky was actually home during the day, fussing over which dress to wear. It was like watching someone preparing for prom, except she had no idea her prom was about to turn into a horror show. Haley was scheduled to stay at a friend's that night working on a school project, thank goodness. Thus, she'd be spared the immediate aftermath. A cunning idea struck me. I decided to lull Becky completely by feigning reconciliation interest that very night. She'd been annoyed at my continued distance and sleeping in the den, and recently had tried a few times to flirt or make nice only to meet polite coolness. What if I flipped the script just before the gala? Perhaps get her guard fully down. So, about an hour before she needed to leave for the event, as she was zipping up a stunning burgundy cocktail dress, I approached her from behind and put my arms around her waist gently. She jumped slightly, surprised. I hadn't touched her in a long time voluntarily. You look beautiful, I murmured into her neck, placing a light kiss. She emitted a pleased, flustered laugh. Well, thank you. This is unexpected. She leaned back into me a bit. I slid my hands along her hips. My stomach churned at being affectionate, but I pushed through, channeling all my old feelings for her. She still smelled amazing, and my body responded even as my heart and mind recoiled. The flesh is stupid like that. I've been thinking, maybe I've been too hard on you, I whispered. Maybe I haven't been fair, holding that night against you for so long. Referring to the night before her Chicago trip, when she brushed me off and I ended up suspecting her. She turned in my arms, eyebrows raised, searching my face. Mike, are you saying... I forced a sheepish smile. I miss you. I'm tired of the Cold War between us. I want us back. The lies slid out smoother than I expected. God forgive me. I even summoned some tears to my eyes, picturing Haley upset helped. I'm willing to try if you are. Her face went through a cascade of emotions. Astonishment, relief, then joy. Real joy. She cupped my face. Oh, honey, and I'm so happy to hear that. I've missed you terribly. I'm sorry I've been awful. I promise I'll make it up to you. We'll fix us, I swear. She was nearly babbling. I shushed her by pressing my lips to hers. The first real kiss we'd had in ages. She kissed back hungrily, like a starving woman. It took all my willpower not to recoil with disgust at the thought of where those lips had been. But I'll admit, in that moment, it almost felt like old times. Almost. Muscle memory and longing for what was. I broke the kiss with a playful smile. How about we continue this later tonight, after the party? I gave her a suggestive eyebrow wiggle that normally would make her laugh. She did laugh. A genuine joyous sound I hadn't heard in so long. Does this mean what I think it means? She purred, echoing a phrase I used on her the night of our confrontation. I smirked. If you think it means I'm going to rock your world tonight, then yes. She practically glowed. Finally got over your little snit, huh? She teased, stroking my cheek. Haley's at her friend's and won't be back till tomorrow, so we have the house to ourselves. Nothing off the table, she winked. This confident, flirty side of her had been absent for a long time. Too bad it was a tad too late. I grinned. Funny you mentioned tables, because I plan to use one when I ravish you later. It was cringe-worthy innuendo, but she loved it. She bit her lip and kissed me again, deeply. Hold that thought, she whispered. I have to go or I'll be late. But damn, I am so looking forward to tonight after the party. Don't you dare fall asleep on me. She wagged a finger, eyes sparkling. I'll be waiting up, count on it, I assured, patting her rear playfully as she stepped away. She grabbed her clutch and blew me a kiss as she headed out the door, a spring in her step that hadn't been there in a long time. I love you, she called out as she left. It took me a second to muster the reply. Love you too. The words almost caught in my throat. Once her car pulled away, I dropped the act and my face fell into a hard scowl. That scene made me almost physically ill, but it served its purpose. If she had any doubts or guilt, I'd eased them. She was going to the party completely unsuspecting. I felt like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, switching between tender and vengeful with the flip of a mental switch. I hated that she could still evoke genuine affection in me even after all this. It would make the next part easier if I despised her fully. But humans are messy. Feelings don't turn off just because you learned someone betrayed you. A part of me would probably always love the woman she once was. But the woman she had become, that woman I was about to destroy. I changed into a suit. I wouldn't attend the gala, not invited obviously, but I wanted to be nearby to watch the fireworks from the sidelines. Our plan was in motion. Elaine had arranged for multiple process servers, dressed as catering staff, to be at the gala. At exactly 8 p.m., midway through the festivities, when everyone was present and glasses were clinking, they'd simultaneously serve. One would hand Rebecca her divorce papers, one would serve Jason his divorce and restraining order, and others would serve the senior partners and the firm itself with the civil lawsuit summons, all while capturing reactions on tiny hidden body cams for posterity and possibly evidence, or at least personal satisfaction. I drove downtown and parked a block from the fancy hotel hosting the event. It was a swanky venue. The firm had rented 2 entire floors of the Museum of Natural History for a highbrow holiday experience among the dinosaur bones and gem collections. Through the tall windows, I could see the glittering gathering of Houston's legal elite, dressed to impress. I slipped into a service hallway through a side door where one of the process server team leads, a woman named Therese, was waiting with her phone, coordinating her waiters. She had a live feed from one of her people's cameras, which she offered for me to watch on her phone. Showtime in 2 minutes, she whispered. On the tiny screen, I could see a banquet hall teeming with well-dressed lawyers and their spouses, waiters circulating with trays. I spotted Rebecca easily. She was in her gorgeous burgundy dress, standing with a cluster of colleagues, including, I noted with a spike of anger, Jason Garrity, who was casually draping an arm around her waist as they laughed at something Big B, Camille Bickman, was saying. The audacity! He did that right out in the open, not realizing or caring that it was my seat he was taking figuratively and literally. He was actually sitting in a seat next to her at dinner earlier, I later learned. She had once promised me that position, and now he occupied it without shame. I saw something else on the feed, Rebecca's face. She looked genuinely happy, flushed with champagne and excitement, likely due in part to our earlier renewal of affection. Probably thought she had her cake and could eat it too now. Reconciled husband and thrilling lover all in one night. That made what I was about to do even more satisfying. The servers were in position. I tensed with anticipation. Through the phone feed, I heard a man's voice loudly address Jennifer Sullivan. They used her full name for formality. That was right behind her, I could see on the camera. She turned, the smile still on her face. Yes, that's me. I have a delivery for you, the server said, extending an envelope. She took it, confused, and glanced down at the title of the document visible through the top of the open envelope. Even on the grainy feed, I saw her expression shatter. Her lips parted, eyes going wide. She read the words, "In the matter of the marriage of Rebecca Sullivan and Michael Sullivan divorce petition," and her head snapped up in panic. She looked wildly around, almost as if expecting me to appear. Instead, a second later at the same little gathering, a different server tapped Jason on the shoulder. "Jason Garrity?" Jason, who had been startled watching Rebecca, turned to the server. Yes? Consider yourself served," the server said, perhaps a bit too smugly, handing him the divorce/TRO from Elaine. Jason blanched, fumbling the papers. Simultaneously, across the room, I could hear other servers formally announcing service to the managing partners and even the firm's CFO. Confusion spread through the attendees. On the camera, I watched Big B frown and snatch the lawsuit summons from one server's hand, thinking it was a mistake, then her face turning beet red as she read. People started murmuring, clustering. Rebecca was staring at Jason, who was staring at her. She mouthed something at him, looked like, "Did you know about this?" And he shook his head, looking utterly poleaxed himself. Camille Bickman, Big B, marched up to them, holding her summons, hissing furiously. Though the audio wasn't clear, I can imagine the dressing down. They had brought a shitstorm to the firm's biggest night. Then, to add the cherry on top, a final server approached the podium at the front, where moments later the managing partner, Victor Bickman, was supposed to give a speech. And that server spoke loudly into the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, you have been served." It echoed around the hall. This part wasn't planned by me. One of the servers took initiative. But boy did it make for drama. The feed was shaky now. Therese cursed and said one of her people likely got jostled or tossed out. I'd seen enough anyway. I thanked her and stepped out of the side door back into the crisp night, taking a deep breath. From my vantage outside, I heard a commotion from the museum entrance. People were spilling out into the lobby, some looking at documents in disbelief, others on phones. Two security staff were arguing with one of the servers who was calmly walking away, her job done. Then I saw Rebecca emerge, flanked by Big B and another partner. Becky looked frantic, clutching the divorce petition to her chest, scanning the area as if seeking me. I was safely out of sight across the street under some trees. I watched her pace, then peel off from the others to make a call, likely to me. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. I let it ring. She tried again. Then came texts. "Mike, please, where are you? I just got divorce papers. What is going on?" Then, "We can fix this, please. This has to be a mistake. I love you. Please answer." I turned my phone off. I allowed myself to watch a minute more. Jason had come out now too, and Elaine's parents, I recognized her father, the judge from photos Elaine showed me, were there suddenly, confronting him. Her father looked ready to spit nails, and Jason, that smug bastard, looked like a child who'd been caught stealing. It was damn satisfying. I slipped away before anyone noticed a lone man lurking. I felt almost giddy. Adrenaline, vindication, whatever it was, I felt alive. Possibly more alive than I had in months. On the drive home, I thought of Haley. Her part in all this was really just beginning. How would she react when this all blew up to her? That was the one dark cloud over my sense of triumph. Because for all the justice I wanted, I knew my daughter's world was about to be truly shaken. And Becky, ironically, I worried in a small corner of my heart that she might do something desperate. But I also reminded myself she had her parents and presumably some friends to lean on, and a good job, well, at least for now. She'd survive. I got home, poured myself a stiff drink of whiskey I'd been saving for a special occasion, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. Less than an hour later, I heard the unmistakable sound of Becky's car racing into the driveway. A car door slammed, and then frantic footsteps. She practically burst through the front door. I hadn't locked it. She was disheveled, hair askew, face stained with tears and mascara. She had obviously driven straight from the event. "Mike!" she cried out as she came in. She spotted me on the living room sofa, whiskey in hand. "Oh, thank God. Mike, what is wrong? Why would you do this?" She held up the divorce papers, her hand shaking. I looked at her coolly. All the earlier sweetness and pretenses were gone. I let silence stretch a beat too long and saw fear spark in her eyes. In a calm, measured tone, I spoke, "How was the party?" She blinked rapidly, taken aback. "The party? What? It was a nightmare, actually, thanks to whatever stunt that was." She took a step forward, changing tactics, voice trembling. Sweetheart, please, talk to me. This is so extreme. I don't understand what's happening. She was almost sobbing now. I tilted the whiskey glass, watching the amber liquid swirl. Oh, I think you understand perfectly well. Or shall I spell it out? You cheated on me with Jason. Repeatedly. Over at least a year. You lied to my face over and over. You sacrificed our marriage and our family for your cheap thrills. And now, Rebecca? Now you're facing consequences. My voice grew harder with each sentence. I stood up facing her. She recoiled, tears spilling. No, 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 it's not like that. It was a mistake. Don't. I snapped, raising a hand. Do not stand there and lie anymore. I know everything. I enunciated the last word with quiet fury. She stopped short, mouth open, searching my face. She could tell I meant it. Everything? She whispered. I nodded slowly. I have evidence, emails, photos. Hell, I have recordings of you bragging to Cassie about how Jason rings your bell and you sneak around for a thrill. I watched the blood drain from her face as she realized Cassie must have betrayed her confidence. Thank you, Desmond's recording. She staggered back, hand on the wall for support. She stammered, then switched to anger out of desperation. You were spying on me? Invading my privacy? That's... Don't you dare try to turn this on me, I growled. You lost any expectation of privacy when you started screwing around behind my back, Rebecca. I only ever called her Rebecca when I was deeply upset. She broke down then, sliding to the floor, sobbing into her hands. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, she kept repeating. I regarded her coldly from above. Funny, earlier that day I was on my knees in front of her promising to fix our marriage, and now she was on the ground begging not to end it. How tables turn. After a minute of her blubbering apologies and please, please, we can work this out, I'd had enough. Stand up, I said quietly. She didn't seem to hear, so I said louder. Get off the floor. Right now. Startled, she looked up and obeyed shakily, standing albeit wobbling on her heels. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to an icy calm. The night before you left for Chicago, do you remember what you told me when I tried to be intimate with you? She blinked in confusion at the change of topic. Probably among the lesser of our concerns, but I wanted this out. I don't... You said, I continued, venom creeping into my voice, just do your business and get it over with. That's what you thought of being with me by that point, huh? I was a chore for you. An obligation. Her eyes widened, horror mixing with shame. Oh God, Mike, I'm so sorry I ever said that. I didn't mean... I cut her off. That's how I knew. In that moment, I knew in my gut you were treating me like some bothersome duty because you were getting your passion elsewhere. You had the nerve to call me a 9-to-5 lifer, a boring husband, while you spread your legs for that pompous son of a bitch. She sobbed, Please, please stop. No, you're going to hear all of this, I snarled. All year you disrespected me. You disrespected our vows. You pissed on the life we built. I loved you, trusted you, and you made me into a damned fool. My voice cracked despite my anger, emotion seeping through. Our daughter nearly hates you for what you've done to us. She knows, Becky gasped, fresh panic. What did you tell Hannah? She's known something was wrong for a long time. She's a smart kid. Smarter than us, maybe. And you know what? She heard enough and figured out you were cheating even before I did. Becky looked like I slapped her. No, she can't have... Oh, she did. She caught sight of a guy dropping you off months back and you acting weird about it. She isn't blind. That was Haley recalling the car drop-off from months ago with a blonde guy named Jim something she mentioned to me later. Becky covered her face with her hands. Oh God. Oh my God, my baby. She bawled into her palms, repeating, What have I done? Over and over. I let her cry for a minute. Honestly, I had released a lot of what I needed to say. An eerie calm settled over me as I watched her unravel. The woman I once adored reduced to a shaking mess, and I felt pity, but mostly I felt righteous anger. Finally, I spoke quietly. You ask why I'm doing this like it's not obvious. You chose him over us. Over and over. Now you get to live with that choice. I refuse to remain married to someone so utterly selfish and treacherous. She dropped her hands and stepped closer, desperately. I'll quit my job. I'll cut off all contact with him forever, I swear. I'll do counseling, anything. Please, Mike, please. We can fix this. She reached for me. I stepped back, holding up my hands. No, we can't. You killed this, not me. I regarded her with genuine sadness then. You know, I used to think we'd grow old together, that nothing could ever truly break us. You were my girl, Beck, my world. And you threw it away like it was nothing. So no, there's no fixing this. I deserve better. And frankly, Haley deserves a better example of love than whatever toxic mess we'd be if I stayed. She shook her head frantically, muttering, "No, no, no," then suddenly rushed forward as if to embrace me. Instinctively, I moved aside and pushed her off. Not roughly, but enough to make clear I didn't want contact. "Don't touch me," I said firmly. She nearly fell, but caught herself on the couch arm. Her expression, I won't lie, it was gut-wrenching. Pure devastation. But I steeled myself. "I have a lawyer. You'll get the papers outlining terms soon. Given you make more money and I'm taking care of Haley, expect to pay child support. I won't ask for alimony even though I legally could for your adultery, because I don't need or want anything from you except our freedom." She opened her mouth, but I barreled on. "We'll figure out a co-parenting schedule that suits Haley. But you should know, she's made it loud and clear she wants to live with me. Your little rebel darling got herself detention every day and snuck out repeatedly just to spite you until I agreed to let her stay with me while we sort this. She's furious with you, Rebecca." Becky collapsed onto the couch, face contorted in pain. "This can't be real," she moaned. "This is like a nightmare." "It's not too late, Mike, please. We can wake up and fix it." She looked at me with pleading, hope against hope. I nearly felt my resolve waver seeing the mother of my child so broken. But I thought of all the nights I waited for her, worried for her, only to learn she was in another man's arms. Thought of Haley crying in my arms, asking why her mom didn't care about us anymore. And my resolve returned tenfold. I knelt down in front of her, as one might to speak to a child on their level. She reached out reflexively as if to stroke my face, but I caught her hand gently and set it down on her lap. "I need you to listen," I said softly. "I have forgiven you." She looked up, startled. I continued, "Not for you, but for me. I don't want to carry hatred. I do forgive you for the pain you caused because I know something had to be deeply wrong in you to do what you did. I hope you figure that out someday and find peace." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. Squeezing her hand now lightly, it felt like touching a corpse. No warmth in it from my perspective. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or reconciling. It simply means I won't let my love for you turn into permanent hate. For 17 years, you were my partner and gave me an amazing daughter. Those good memories, those aspects of you, I will cherish. The rest, your betrayal, your cruelty, I'm letting go for my own sake. Do you understand? Tears streamed down her face as she slowly nodded. I released her hand and stood. "I'm going to sleep at our daughter's bedside in my apartment tonight. She needs me. And frankly, I need her. You should probably stay somewhere else for now. Your parents, maybe." She looked around at the house blankly, then back at me. Was our home. I can't just not. You can come collect your things later when Haley's at school. I don't want a big ugly scene for her sake. You and I can be civil for her, I hope. She's all that matters now." I walked to the door and opened it, gesturing for her to leave. It was cruel, perhaps, but I had nothing more to say, and seeing her was just torment now. Becky stood, shaking. She took a tentative step toward me. "Mikey, is it really over? Truly?" I felt a hollowness in my chest as I affirmed, "Truly over. It has been since the moment you decided to sleep with someone else. The rest was just the slow realization for me, and now for you." She closed her eyes, swaying. For a second I worried she'd faint. Then she steadied, walked slowly toward the door. As she passed over the threshold, she paused, inches from me. I could smell the faded perfume and the hint of Jason's cologne still on her dress. My stomach lurched. She looked up at me, eyes full of anguish and love and regret. "I do love you," she whispered. "I never stopped. For whatever it's worth. I'm so sorry, my love." I felt a hot tear roll down my cheek despite all. I simply nodded and turned my face away, unable to look at her. "Goodbye, Rebecca." My voice cracked on her name. She staggered out into the night. I gently closed the door behind her and locked it. Then I pressed my back to it and slid down, finally letting the sobs come. I sat there in the entryway of what was once our happy home and cried like a wounded animal. Pained, but alive. The weeks that followed were intense. As expected, the news of our dramatic divorce and my lawsuit spread through Houston's legal circles like wildfire. B's partners were furious and embarrassed. Several major clients dropped them within days of the scandal. The thought that I played a part in that felt like justice. The firm went into PR damage control overdrive, but the content of the lawsuit made for salacious gossip that no amount of spin could fully snuff out. Prominent law firms sued for facilitating affair, read one headline of a legal blog. It was humiliating for them, which was part of my goal. Of course, my professional life took some awkward turns, too. It's not every day an ADA publicly sues a top law firm. But the DA stood by me, mostly due to Rob's "I don't give a damn, let him raise hell" stance. Some colleagues looked at me differently, some with pity, some with a bit of amusement, honestly. I didn't care. I was too focused on making sure Haley was okay and navigating the legal endgame. Haley, for her part, was a mix of emotions. She was relieved that it was all out in the open and she could be with me. But she also harbored a lot of anger and hurt toward her mother. She outright refused to speak to Rebecca for the first couple of weeks. I tried to gently encourage her to not entirely shut out her mom, but I didn't push too hard. I understood she needed time to process. Therapy was definitely on the horizon for her, and maybe for me. Rebecca, I learned, had indeed resigned from B shortly after the holiday party fiasco. Not that it saved her career. Her reputation in big law was effectively destroyed by the scandal. No fancy firm would touch her now. I heard through the grapevine, and from MC via a burner email, that she had taken a lower-paying in-house counsel job at a local company a couple months later. Fine by me. She'd need something to pay the eventual child support. Our divorce progressed with unusual speed, perhaps because Rebecca didn't have the fight in her. She let her lawyer, some guy named Ken Lovelace, ironically, handle most of it. We mediated and agreed that I'd be primary custodian of Haley, and she'd have liberal visitation. Haley would have to decide when she was ready to resume. We agreed to a property division that gave me the house. I actually planned to sell it, too many memories, and downsize to a townhome for just me and Haley. She kept her 401k and her car, etc. I didn't want anything financially except for her to contribute to Haley's upbringing. When we had to sit in the same room during one session, she looked like a shell of herself, pale, drawn, like she hadn't slept in days. I maintained a civil demeanor, and she meekly went along with whatever I proposed if it seemed fair. At one point, when our attorneys stepped out to discuss something, we were alone. She quietly said, "Thank you for not trying to ruin me financially on top of—" She didn't finish. I sighed. I never wanted to ruin you. I just needed to get out for us to get free. And maybe to make a point that actions have consequences. For what it's worth, I'm not out to ruin you now. I just want to move on. She nodded, tears in her eyes. You deserve to be happy. I hope you will be again someday. It was almost too painful to respond, so I just said, you too, without much feeling. The civil lawsuit against B took longer to unfold, but it served its purpose. We went through a nasty discovery phase. Mike made them turn over internal emails and deposed partners. The stuff we dug up was gold. Turns out there were other instances of interoffice affairs being covered up, some potentially involving shady payoffs to jilted spouses or employees. It painted a picture of a firm culture that put profit above any semblance of ethics or decency. The B partners, faced with that and eager to avoid a public trial, eventually offered to settle. I didn't get a windfall by any means. After legal fees, I netted about $600 but that was enough to set up Haley's college fund and give me a little cushion for a fresh start. More satisfying than the money, though, was knowing B felt that sting. They lost a few more partners over the scandal and were never quite the same powerhouse in town. As for Jason Garrity, well, fate took a satisfying turn with him. Buried in the documents we found was proof he'd billed some of his and Becky's playtime to a federal client as legal work. That, my friends, is called fraud. I passed that info to a contact in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they did not take it lightly. Old Jason ended up being prosecuted under the False Claims Act for defrauding the government. He took a plea deal and got 6 months in federal prison and a hefty fine. And poetic justice, he surrendered his law license to avoid a disbarment hearing. No more practicing law for him. I did send him a letter in jail through his attorney, a simple line. Still not tired of jailing bad guys. Probably a cheap shot, but damn it felt good. Haley's opinion on that when I told her? Screw that asswipe, she said bluntly. I gave her a mild scold for language, but couldn't really disagree. She then humorously rephrased, fornicate that buttocks-cleaning towelette, which actually made me burst out laughing. For the first time in a long time, I heard genuine laughter from myself and from her. We were going to be okay. Now it's been a few years. Haley navigated her teen years with resilience. She still sees her mom, though it took a long time to rebuild any kind of relationship. Rebecca went through a rough period of depression after everything, especially when Haley effectively shunned her for a year or two except brief cordial interactions. Eventually, with some therapy and time, Haley let some connection resume. By her senior year of high school, she invited her mom to her school events again, and I think Rebecca being humbled and persistent in showing up helped thaw things. They aren't super close, Haley confides in my now wife more than her mom, but at least they're on decent terms. Ah yes, my now wife. Life has a way of throwing blessings at you when you least expect them. A couple years after my divorce, I crossed paths with Lauren, a teacher at Haley's high school. We met at a field hockey game of Haley's. Lauren's son was on the boys' soccer team and was also there. Sparks flew quietly but steadily. She was also divorced from, of all things, a cheating spouse who she literally caught in bed with his mistress, and he got the mistress pregnant to boot. Lauren and I took it slow, once burned, twice shy and all. But over time, trust and love grew. She understood my wounds and I hers. We made a pact early on. One and done. If either of us even felt tempted, we'd address whatever issue head-on or part ways honorably. But that's never been tested. We've been happily married now for a year. Roberta, Rob McAllister, the DA, who I discovered is actually Roberta not Robert, gave a heck of a toast at our wedding, teasing that Lauren was marrying a 40-something Boy Scout. And Lauren quipped back, he better stay that way if he expects to. Remain in one piece. It got a good laugh. Even Haley joked that she can see the fire when Lauren and I look at each other. She's not wrong. That love is real and bright. I sometimes reflect on how oddly things turned out. In a perfect world, I'd have remained blissfully married to Rebecca all my days, and she to me. But that perfect world shattered, and from its pieces, a new life assembled. Lauren and I have a blended family I cherish. Her son and my daughter get along like siblings. After an initial adjustment, of course. Lauren became the mother figure Haley needed during those crucial late teen years when she couldn't lean on her own mom. And that, surprisingly, turned out to be one of the hardest pills for Rebecca to swallow. When Haley bonded strongly with Lauren, it sent Rebecca into a depression. The reality that another woman was filling the role she abdicated crushed her. I learned secondhand, through Haley and a bit through Rebecca's parents, that the day Haley told her mom that Lauren was taking her dress shopping for senior prom, Becky ended up checking herself into a mental health facility for a 2-month intensive program. That notion broke whatever shards were left of my anger toward her. By then, I mostly just felt pity and a resigned empathy. She had reaped what she sowed, yes, but I never wished her to be utterly shattered. At her request, and with Haley's encouragement, I visited Rebecca once during that inpatient stay. It was civil and sad, but ultimately cathartic. She expressed resentment that I landed on my feet while she was still paying for her fling. She argued my vow to stick by her in bad times should have meant giving her another chance, that I broke an implicit promise to God to work on the marriage. I told her calmly that from the moment she cheated, she had effectively ended the marriage in my eyes. She'd just been playing catch-up to realize it. And that any vow I made, I'd reconcile with my maker in time. But I had made peace with my choice. I also told her I forgave her truly, again, for whatever that was worth. She thanked me through tears. In the end, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Rebecca back together again. Not as the person she was, but she has found a kind of equilibrium. Living alone, dating casually but nothing serious, and focusing on rebuilding trust with Haley slowly, she is stable, if not particularly happy in the way I once knew her to be. It's a shame, but it is what it is. As for me, I look back on it all with surprisingly few regrets now. I regret the pain caused to Haley most of all, and sometimes, an old anger flares up when I recall how much she and I lost in those years we could have had as an intact family. In a perfect world, like I said, things would have been different. But this world, the real one, is messy and unpredictable. If my first marriage hadn't imploded, I'd never have the life I do now with Lauren and our blended brood. We love each other deeply, and we cherish our family with full hearts every day. The fall I went through was terrifying, like plummeting from a great height, but at least hitting the ground didn't kill me. In fact, I found solid ground to stand on again, and eventually, someone new to stand alongside me. I've made my peace as best I can, forgiven where I needed to, fought where I had to, and held on to what mattered. The rest is life. Imperfect, unpredictable, but sometimes, if you're lucky, better than what you imagined. And that's the story of how I lost one life and gained another. I wouldn't wish the path on anyone, but I came out the other side. Few regrets, a few scars, and a hopeful heart. And for me, for us, that's enough. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, so subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.